coming up on this After Hours episode of the Grassroots podcast.
You have owners that like used to be in like the oil industry and stuff. Like these guys are like multi-millionaires. One guy is the mascot, like that's your owner. This guy's worth millions of dollars, and he's wearing a horse suit. And like we're talking about loving hockey. These guys love hockey. Yeah. Right? Like to be an import, you have to be good. Like when we're matching against import lines almost all the time. I wish I made it, and I wish I had some of those like intangibles that he had too.
I'm Quincy Kennedy.
I'm JFK.
I'm Dave Ferrari.
And you're hanging out with us in the Fox Den for another Grassroots podcast Roundtable. Guys, it's going to be a fantastic show tonight. We got my man, Geordie Wudrick. How are we doing, bud?
I'm doing great. It's cool to be here. It's a great little studio. I mean, we got the whole TV.
It is a great studio. It's the Fox Den, yes.
It's impressive.
It is impressive.
What's going on here.
So, Geordie, you have quite the resume. I couldn't remember it all. That wasn't my forte in school. I was one of the kids who cheated. Didn't cheat my athletic abilities. In my education.
Putting out a good message to the kids already. You're not cheating, you're not trying.
I'm just kidding. That's right. But quite the resume. 2015, you played with the North Stars. 28 games played, 44 goals, 47 assists for a total of 91 points. Epic. 3.3 points per game with 40 penalty minutes. That's a boy. 2016, playing with the Canberra Brave. 19 games played thus far, 19 goals, 29 assists, 48 points, 2.5 points per game average with 34 penalty minutes. You are the legend of the hour, man. Excited to have you on. For those who don't know you, give us a little background about who you are.
Yeah, well, I grew up kind of all over West Coast Canada, all around kind of the Vancouver area. I first started playing hockey in a little town just outside of Whistler, the big ski resort called Squamish. It was a little pond puppies organization, that's what they called it. And it was hilarious. Like, I think right off the bat, I was like, well, no one's wearing a C. So I got a C pressed on my jersey. I was like 4, and I'm like, I want to be the captain. So I'm the captain already.
Self-proclaimed captain.
Yeah, at 4 years old. But yeah, I grew up all over Vancouver, in a bunch of different cities there. I played a bunch of sports growing up. I know you guys are big lacrosse fans. I played box lacrosse.
Yes, I had a boy.
Up until I started playing hockey in junior. And so that would definitely be my second favorite sport. But I never played field, though. Never played field, always box.
Yeah, I love my field, man.
But,
that field life.
Yeah, I've been all over. Like, I love playing hockey. That's my passion. That's what I do. It's in my blood since I was a little kid. I got addicted to it probably, from my dad and his whole family. But my mom's a diehard hockey fan. She's been a Bobby Orr fan since she was a little girl. She's got signed pictures all over our house. I mean, one of the biggest moments for me when I was a kid would have been the first Canucks playoff run when they lost in the finals to the Rangers. And I mean, I remember just being a kid, 94. And I was like 4 years old, and I remember like crying for the first time that I can remember, just being so crushed. And like Pavel Bure was a young guy, and Trevor Linden and Kirk McLean had this big picture, like hugging and kissing. And
was that the flying skate jerseys?
Yeah. That was a skate. It was like
gold, red, and
where
black.
it looks like a spaghetti plate too. Yeah, but it's like I didn't know it was a skate until I was like 14. I'm like, oh, it's a skate. They've had so many jerseys over my years.
And I vividly remember those playoffs because I was crying on the other end, but tears of joy because that was the first Stanley Cup the New York Rangers won in ages. I was a huge Brian Leach fan, Adam Graves, Mark Messier, who guaranteed it a win.
Yes.
So tough days.
That was a huge playoff run though.
Oh yeah, it was so good. Wait, Game 7, I want to say final score was 3-4,
something like that.
Yeah, Mike Richter, man, so many legends there.
But yeah, that's kind of what got me going. And then I was a huge Pavel Bure fan. I remember getting a Pavel Bure autograph when I was like 6-7 years old, and that was just the coolest thing ever. And that was it. I wanted to be Pavel Bure. I wanted to be on the Canucks. I wanted to do everything with my Canucks stuff, but I was always wearing my Anaheim Mighty Ducks stuff though. When like the Ducks movies came out, I remember like walking around in my snowsuit. It'd be like puffy, and then it's all purple. And all purple, Duck stuff, everything. I'm like, I'm not even a Ducks fan. I just needed the gear because they were a new team.
I was definitely that kid. I had everything. Yes, you Ducks. I had everything.
You did.
I loved Korea, Timo Solani. Those are my boys, man. Loved it.
They were unreal.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that is a great description of Geordie. I think you love hockey, and obviously playing with you last year in Newcastle, and we get a lot of imports every year, and you talk to the guys about hockey and where they've played and stuff, but never have I killed a flight as easy as just talking from hockey cards to all-star teams of 90 whatever, and you can just talk about it all day. I love it.
Oh, I know, and the endless conversations we'd have in the rink. I know Gary might hate me, but I mean, most of the time we were just talking hockey, talking drills, like anything, that's just kind of how my family was. My dad or my mom, whoever I'm hanging out with, we're talking hockey. It's like my mom comes over and she's got a goodie bag of like grip tape and laces and a new visor for me, and I'm like, oh, this is the best gift ever. Like, I don't need any clothes, I just need my gear.
See, like, that's the care package there. But
Yeah.
see, that's the difference in culture. Like, that's like Canada in itself. Like, I will even think there's some American families like that, I'm sure, but like, that's Canada. That's just bread and butter. When you talk ice hockey, that's what it is. And everything you described, your mom being a diehard fan, your dad, it's like, it's in your blood.
Yeah.
Hockey runs in your veins. It's within your family, I think. That's like that awesome culture. I mean,
yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, we always had a place, like, Vancouver's funny, like, pretty much 99% of the rest of the country, you got somewhere to play outdoor hockey at all times. I mean, we were playing street hockey. I was on rollerblades. Like, never really played inline that much, but I was on rollerblades, cruising around to the candy store, get my Slurpee. But I always had a place in my backyard. It would be, like, no bigger than this, and that would be, like, my shooting area. I would always think, like, my favorite spot to shoot, if I can get the puck in the high slot in between the hash marks, like, that's my bread and butter.
That's all
it's like going in the net, because I would be shooting 1,000, 2,000 pucks a day, and that was just like, I was doing that for fun. It wasn't like, Geordie, get down there and shoot your pucks, man.
Yeah.
It was just like, you just find me there after school, I'm shooting pucks, playing road hockey, trying to do homework here and there, but mostly playing hockey, so that's what I love doing.
Like, I feel like we'll touch base on that again, but like, I'm already getting like my athletic training side of it. I'm like, oh yeah, getting all motivated. Yeah, that's what you need to do.
I'm getting pumped, man. Like,
so this is gonna be a great,
such a good conversation.
episode.
We're just getting started. We're like, what, 5 minutes in, 6 minutes in? I'm just thinking, when you talk about you as a kid, I'm just thinking about like us growing up playing hockey. I remember we had like the Sega Genesis. That's how John was too. Like, John was always practicing. Like, you didn't have to tell him, I'm trying to play like 95 Sega Genesis with like megapixels going across the stream playing hockey, and he's just winding up slap shots at the Sega Genesis. It's freezing my game. or he'll put like, because they had the square box cases, and he puts them up like they're like the All-Star game.
Oh,
and they're Target, and he's blasting. I'm crying. Bow, bow. It's like,
Well, see, I guess to paint that picture visually. So you have your home entertainment system.
Yeah.
And I would take the cases from video games and put them in different spots on the entertainment center, and that's like would be my targets. Wow, I remember good stuff.
I remember that.
Way back memory lane.
Yeah.
I'm starting to feel old now, but oh well.
My mom was bugging me. She's like, what's up, Bill? Like, everyone on their iPads and stuff. I'm like, that's just the way it is. She's like, I never let you had a video game. I go, no, I know when you did. It was 1998, and Eric Lindros was on the cover, and that's why I got it. It was the best day of my life.
That's how you can. That's how you can
N64.
identify years is by who was on the cover of AIHL kids.
It's like,
All right.
So I'm going to skip it forward.
Okay.
Number 88. Is that Big E or is that a Patty Kane?
so
or
I would say, like, I would have been too pre-Patty Kane to call him, to be a fan of him. I'm not sick now. But 8 was always my lucky number growing up for whatever reason. I wanted 9 or 10 because like Pavel Bure was like switching numbers like 9, 10, and then he's wearing 96 one year because I know guys are getting money for jerseys. So like when you switch numbers, everyone's got to go and buy your jerseys, so you're getting a little cut of that. So he's like, Pavel Bure loved his money, so he's like switching it up, getting more money. And then so I'm like, well, I need 9 or 10. And then like I was playing up a year early in Squamish. So, like I was like 4, everyone's 5 or 6, and then so I'm like, they're like, well, yeah, this kid's got last pick. I'm like, oh, and number 8 was like last, and my dad always liked 8 too. So I stuck with 8 kind of mostly up until junior and that. And then, but kind of why I picked it here was 88 is what I went overall in the draft. And that's kind of, so it always stuck with me. Like I knew from the time I was like a young kid that I would be drafted. That was like my dream. But I knew it was going to be 2008. So I was so pumped. I knew that on the back of that jersey would be 08. So like 8's always been, that's been like my lucky number. And,
you went in the 3rd round to LA. Did you get the jersey, and do you have the jersey?
Yeah, I do. I was actually there. My dad and I went there. I mean, that trip was cool. It was in Ottawa. Ottawa, like, originally got the draft on Crosby's year, but then they weren't allowed to have it at the stadium because of the lockout, so they had, like, a super small venue. So they were allowed to get it, like, would have been like a handful of years later. So we went there, and I had a couple last interviews with a few teams. So I actually got the free trip out there. So I'm like, okay, we're there. You got to stay for it, right?
Yeah.
Like you never know where you're gonna go. So we're sitting there in the first round, and I'm like, man, I just want a pizza. I know I'm not going first round, but it's like you don't want to be the guy who's like they pan the camera, and I'm sitting in my suit like eating a pizza or a hot dog. So I'm sitting there, and it was like they're like, this is the longest first round of all time. They were it's like 5 hours long, and Stamkos and Doughty and them are going, and I'm like, I'm just so hungry. Like that's all I was thinking in the first round. I'm like, oh, it's great to be here. I watch this every year of my life. It was just like an event.
Yeah.
Did you think you could go in first round? Like,
I mean, I hope that I would.
Yeah.
That's just like in the back of your head, you hope. But I kind of ended up going where I figured I would go.
right.
Yeah.
And I had a pretty good hunch it would be LA. Like at the draft combine, which was probably the most stressful week of my life, I had 28 interviews out with the 30 teams. So, but I mean, they blocked me out for like a full hour. Usually they're like 15 minutes, so they had me for 4 sessions, and I'm just in there like sweating through my suit just because it's the most nervous time ever. You're getting grilled by like, it'd be like a room like this, but think of it like 10 guys that are all like, you know, you got Ron Hextall in there, you got Dean Lombardi. These guys are intense. Like Hextall's a nut, but he's like super intense, and then you got all these other guys just asking you some of the craziest questions, and they're almost like, you know, they're like psychological questions trying to trick you.
Can you remember any of the craziest?
So first thing they come in there, and like I was like wearing my dress shoes. I always got a little crazy style when I'm dressed up, and they go, those are quite the fancy shoes, and I go, don't you think they would work well in LA though? And then, so that was my quick answer for that. And then,
Get him out of here.
So they just try to do things like, I mean, the craziest one, I mean, there was a few. So one was I go into Chicago, and it's Dale Talon. He's all the original 6 teams get the best hotel rooms in the hotel. So that's where they have it. So they have like the biggest spread, right? And I'm like, oh, they got bottles of water and all this. I'm like, oh, this is great. And like Dale Talon's like on the phone. And he's GM at the time, and he's just like, Geordie, he locks it in for like the longest handshake, and he's just dead staring at me, and I'm like, do I let go or not? I have no idea what to do, but he's just dead staring at it. And then he's like, I like it. And he goes, to be honest, we're not going to draft you. We know that you know Colton Tuber and Kyle Beach really well. Who should we pick? And I said Colton Tuber. They picked Kyle Beach, but I mean, neither of them ended up panning out too well, but so that was one. Had nothing to do with me. They're like, have some snacks, relax. They're like, you know, we're probably not gonna pick you. We don't have a lot of picks here in your range, but you know, we just need some info. I'm like, okay, like I got the info.
Yeah, that's
like, what do you need?
That's cool.
And then Minnesota was like grilling me. They're like, man, your second half wasn't that great. I'm like, well, man, you gotta look at the stats, man. Like I'm scoring better. I'm like developing as my year's going on. I mean, like my draft year was a tough year. Like one of my best friends passed away, so like it was that was a tough year. But I mean, so kind of highs and lows of that year was, you know, my best friend passing away while I'm gone playing junior. I go back for the funeral, and I mean, it's been quite a few years now, but at the time it was pretty hard. And then kind of to end that off at the end of the year getting drafted, I mean, I was kind of doing that for him, and so that was quite the whirlwind year. But I mean, the draft. That was exciting. Like I'll never forget that day. It was amazing.
Awesome. So I guess just to fill in our listeners, where did you play your juniors growing up? How many years of juniors did you play in?
So I played pretty much like 5.5 years in the WHL. I mean, I didn't play junior A, nothing. I was drafted really high in the first round by Swift Current. And I went there, and the WHL works a little bit differently where you're drafted a year before you can start playing. So I was able to get 5 games in, and then if your team like loses out in the playoffs, then you can finish the rest. So I ended up getting like 15, 16 games in at a 15-year-old. And I ended up with some sort of crazy number. Like I was like top 12 all time games played. I got like 349 regular season games and like 51 playoff games. So I'm leaving like junior at 21, 20 with like 400 games already, so like I got some like years logged on this body, so I guess I'm relaxing a bit. But then I ended off with the Kelowna Rockets, and I mean that's just probably one of the best organizations in Canada in terms of major junior. I mean, London Knights would be up there. Vancouver Giants have had their times in and out, but I mean the consistency and the NHL players that they produce is just second to them.
Was that a trade you didn't see coming, or did you have some input on that? Because obviously it's kind of home for you, like going back to BC.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it was nice. I mean, the assistant coach actually, like, he's from Swift Current, and actually, I took his sister out to prom.
Oh,
so I mean, that's funny. So like I kind of knew the Cuthbert family, and like Ryan used to be a captain there, and I had friends, brothers that played, like Kyle Comiskey. He played there, so I'd always seen the Rockets a bunch, and I mean, they're only 3 or 4 hours away from home.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's kind of like, I would say Kelowna's the gold standard in the WHL. Like, everyone is like secretly in the back of their head, like, oh, if I get traded there, like, I'm not going to be upset. Because like they got coaches for everything. Like in Swift Current, we're running a head coach, assistant coach, and like a part-time goalie coach. And you just know they're running head coach, assistant coach, D coach. They're running video coach full-time goalie coach. They got a skills coach, and like they got a skating coach. And I went there, and like I just love to learn. And I was like, my career went from like here to here. I just was learning. Like, not that I was getting that much better, but it was just like on the ice, like in games and numbers wise, but I felt like my knowledge was growing, and like you had so many resources. I was just like, I wish that every team in junior would be able to like put that same product out.
No, okay, so growing up, when did you get to the point where you actually knew where you, like, I can actually do this, I can get drafted? Did you have that moment where, I don't know, whether it was a tournament or a certain game where you put up a bunch of points, or maybe you got picked on a certain team? Like, when did it kind of hit you that this can actually be a career for me?
I would say, in all honesty, probably before I was 7 years old. I was like pretty confident. It was just like, in my head, I was like, there's no way that I'm not going to get drafted. I mean, I wish I would have got some NHL games under my belt. Who knows, maybe it still happens. I mean, probably not, but
never say never.
But that was just kind of the mindset I had. I mean, I was never like pushed by my mom or dad. It was just like, I loved it, and they were like, I listened to a podcast earlier with like Jamie Foxx, Tim Ferriss, and Jamie Foxx said,
Such a good podcast.
It's one of the best ever.
One of the best ever recorded podcasts.
So
next to Grassroots.
Jamie Foxx is describing like his grandma, and he like was growing up, and what did he say? It's like something along the lines, I'll paraphrase it, where for your kids, you got to be like the bow and arrow combo. Like, your kids are the arrow, and you got to be the bow, and you can just guide them in the right direction, and you can point them in the right area, and like hopefully it makes it to the target. And so I mean, that was my goal. That's what I wanted to do, and they just kind of facilitate whatever I needed, wherever I had to go, whatever it was possible, whatever I needed. Sticks, skates, extra skating lessons. I was the kid though asking for it. I was like, yo, I want to do some power skating. I wanted some extra. I need a brand new net. I need this. I need that. And they're like, how can you complain with that?
I think. Just to go off that, just thinking about John too, in regards to like growing up and playing hockey and the parents' participation in that. I think when you have a passion like you did, I think the parents are kind of learning as you go, but it's really the player with the passion that's kind of teaching the parents, and the parents are just supporting and being able to provide for that. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, like my dad, like he played up until like he grew up in Saskatchewan. Like he played maybe like at a junior B level, but like he was always my head coach up until I'd say about bantam, when it's kind of starting to get really serious, and like you don't need that. It's a tough mix because like, I mean, he's gonna want to put me out there, but like, it's not always gonna work out like that. So like he would be like an assistant coach role. Like he's a really smart guy hockey wise too, and we still try to chat as much as possible about what's going on, how the games are going. So, but like you said though, they were just like more of like a support role, and it was like, if anything, my mom would be a bit harder on me. Like my dad would be like super positivity, and my mom would be like, we might be having to back check a little bit more. And I'd be like, you know what, I probably do.
Spoke like a true hockey mom.
But that's exactly what they were. They were just helping me out, and always positivity. I mean, they gave me like little tips and tricks. Like they were both athletes. My mom was a good athlete growing up too. And I mean, like, just things like my dad was telling me about, like, visualization and psychology and that, from the time I was 10, and like having like good pregame routines. Like it wasn't like you got to be practicing, you got to be putting all these extra hours in, but he would be like, here's this little thing, it's called visualization. You might not even know what this is yet, and it might not make sense for 5 or 10 years, but if you can try to do that, just visualize yourself scoring goals. And I mean, it's something that you would do, like, how kids are saying, oh, it's the Stanley Cup winning goal, we're playing street hockey, but like I'd be there laying in bed thinking like, yeah, I can do this is what's happening. And I would just think goals. Goals were always on my mind.
That's awesome. But I like how you mentioned the fact that you were hungry for it and your parents facilitated, especially when you say hungry for power skating. Like, hey, I need to get better at skating, so I need to do power skating. I know a lot of the times people like to say they want to get better, but they're not willing to do that. And like for those who don't know, power skating, there's no pucks involved. It's just working on your edges. It's working on being a better skater. And it's not the glitz and glamour of like playing hockey or small area games. It's kind of like that other side of the game that you need. It's a necessity, but it's not pretty. And in order for you to like realize that, want that, and pursue it, it shows you that when you are passionate about something, you don't care about the glitz and glamour. You just want to get better, and you don't care by any means necessary. You're going to get better, and I think that's huge. And I think, like I said, if you're going to be passionate, if you're going to excel at whatever sport you're going to do, you have to put in those hard yards. But it doesn't even feel like hard yards because you know you're getting better.
Exactly, and especially if you love it and you love doing it, like, you know, I would always try to make a game out of it. Like, even though I hated, like, you know, the power skating, it's like, oh man, like it's pretty, like you're getting bag skated for like an hour, right?
Yeah.
It's tiring, and you're going outside your comfort zone because like they're teaching you, like, even like I probably changed my stride when I was like 19, 20 to something completely different that I hadn't learned yet. And I mean, like, that was a big change, but it's just always being uncomfortable, and I think that's good. Like, if you can be comfortable being uncomfortable.
I love that quote. I'm sorry. That's like a life quote for me.
Then I think you can have success. So I think that's a big way to start.
That's good.
With so obviously skills you can work on, but some things are kind of intangible.
Yeah.
And you said you played 300 and something games in the Western Hockey League, which is a tough league.
Yeah.
When you were coming to Newcastle, I messaged a good friend of mine, and former colleague Dan Price, who used to coach in Chilliwack, and against you.
Yeah.
I'm like, what's Geordie Wudrick? What's he all about? And spoke really highly of you, but said you guys are getting a hell of a player. Mean and plays with an edge.
Yeah.
I guess for people out there, what is playing with it? Well, one, do you agree with that? And two, like, what is playing with an edge? And obviously, it's not a skill you can just acquire.
Like, I would say, like, if you saw like 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old Geordie, you'd be like, this guy might be like a psychopath. Only because it was like you just want to win, and like I was like always slightly bigger. I never went through a big growth spurt, so like you always just kind of like had that like bit of physicality in the game, even when you weren't hitting. But I mean, for me, playing with an edge, that was like just being bigger and learning how to use your body. I think I learned a lot, especially in the camps when I go to LA. Like, they were really like big on being power forwards, and that's kind of how they play. They play that puck possession game, and like, I mean, like, I play a little chippy and I play with a little bit of edge. I wouldn't say I'm too dirty all the time, but like I'm doing like little sneaky things, and I'm like, you're playing physical, but mostly for me it's puck possession, and I'm in and around the net all the time. I'm like falling on the ice, like trying to do wraparound, stuffing it in, like, you know, getting in with your body. Like, I'm a big guy, so you gotta use that, but I like playing on the edge. Like, I can even tell, like, I just got back from a game here, and I was like, you know, your first bit is going, and then all of a sudden it just like something clicks in your mind, and I was like, oh, I'm going now. It's happening, and it's just like you get this like insane tunnel vision, not where it's like taking out my vision to make plays, but it's just like I'm going to the net. It's like if anything gets in my way, like I'm gonna take them out. I'm gonna go over top of them, around them, push them through, but that puck's gonna get in the net.
Yeah. What I hear from your story is like you had phenomenal will and phenomenal skill, right? Talking about getting drafted, like that's a big thing. Like that's massive for anyone to get drafted. Can you just talk to us and to our listeners about seizing the opportunity? Because you're talking about power skating and then getting support from your parents and then just the different things that you did. Can you just talk specifically about seizing opportunity?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that like I can even touch on both of it. I think there's times when maybe I didn't seize it well either that I can recognize now and think back on. But I mean, like certain opportunities, I think like a big change for me was when I went to prep school in Saskatchewan. I mean, I kind of left my comfort zone there a bit. I had a good thing going on in BC, and I probably could have kept doing well. But I think like playing in a harder, stronger midget league where it's just tough hockey, like, you know, that was an opportunity to get myself ready for the WHL. And I was able to go in, like, I only got healthy scratch once, and I was a 20-year-old, which was just like more like you got to get going now.
Yeah.
But, you know, like I was able to get in there and play all the games at 16, which is rare. Like, even if I'm not racking up 100 points, like some of these phenoms are, it was just the fact that I was able to go in there from that experience of playing midget, where you're getting hit, you're hitting, and you're playing more games, like you're up to playing 44 games at that time of year. I thought that was a good opportunity to try to get myself ready so that I didn't have to go through those baby steps of getting your feet wet. I could just kind of hop into it. That's a big one. And then I think, seizing those opportunities, like when you do get the chance to play, and when you start getting your power play time when you're a younger junior guy, like that doesn't always happen. I mean, I always wanted to be the shooter, but they're like, we're gonna put you in front of the net, and I'm like, you just gotta take that. Like, I'm not gonna be like, no, that's not me. I want to be the shooter. And then he'd be like, okay, well, you're not on the power play. So like, you just gotta take that opportunity. You just gotta stay quiet. You gotta kind of wait for your chance, and then when you get that chance, you gotta run with it. And getting drafted was awesome. Like that's, at the time it feels like the pinnacle of your career, but then it's like now the next step is getting signed. So it's like you can get drafted, and that's great, and that's just like, you've made it through like the filters of all sorts of hockey, through the Canada program and all that, and then now you got drafted, but it's like now you want to sign, you want to get that money, of course, but you want to get those games in. And I mean, I wish I would have got some games in, just like, I mean, that would have been a dream come true, but even just the fact of just being there and being that close to it, I mean, being at NHL camps, like, I remember being online with Anze Kopitar and Dustin Brown in camp, and I was like, wow, this is insane, right? Yeah. Like, this is just great. But I don't know, like maybe I just didn't quite have it, or just like, didn't have the right few playoff games here and there and missed out a contract. But I mean, I'm definitely happy with how things worked out. Like, it was pretty successful there.
Did you play any exhibition games?
I played a couple rookie games, so I never got it like full on with the other NHL guys. But I mean, even those were like, that's some of the best games I've ever played. Yeah. So it's pretty cool.
So I guess on that, like he and obviously what we're going to talk about, I want to talk about kind of where hockey's taken you up to this point, because I think it's probably on a different level more interesting than guys that just make it to the NHL and have a career in the NHL. But you've played with a lot of good players, and a lot of those good players are in the NHL now.
Yeah.
And what's that feeling like? Because obviously that was once your teammate. Yeah. You might think you're better than him, you know what I mean? But you might think like, I was rooming with this guy or whatever, and now he's making, $3 million.
I mean, no, definitely. It was like, I think the first couple years, that was like tough to swallow, just because it's like, and like when you're still in there and still in the mix, and then you just start going through everything. It's like, do I need to be getting to school and like be going through the CIS and doing all this, and you're just not quite sure, because once you're out of that mix of the NHL guys, like you're almost kind of off to the side, and now you're trying to get back in. Meanwhile, you got the younger guys who are still in that ladder of building up. But I mean, like some of my really good friends, like have made it, and like at first you're upset and you're still hoping that you can make it, but now I'm just really proud of those guys. Like, I know all those guys deserve what they got. Like, they were doing the same things I was doing. They're the guys that wanted it more than anything. Like, we've talked endless about like Derek Grant. I mean, he's doing great. Like, he's up and down, and like I think he's just a few steps away from making it. And like one of my roommates in Swift Current, Dale Weiss, I was just talking to him the other day, and like, he's just now,
he's got his payday.
He's just got his big payday, right? And that's great for him and his family. And I just said, hey, congrats. And he just wondered where I was, and I told him I was down in Australia, and he just loves the fact that I'm still playing. So I mean, I wish I made it, and I wish maybe I had some of those like intangibles that he had too. But I mean, his story is great. Like, he wasn't even drafted to the WHL. Like, he was an undrafted guy by the Medicine Hat Tigers, and then Swift Current picked him up, and he slowly made it. I mean, he literally fought his way into the AHL, literally fighting guys, and that's how he made it. He's just as big, maybe a bit bigger and a little bit faster, but he just got like hands of steel. But it's a good score too. And then like, he was a fighter in the AHL, and then next thing you know, he puts up a good season. He's one of the top goal scorers, and then boom, he gets called up to New York. And then he was doing that up and down. Then he goes to Vancouver, and then Montreal. And I mean, Montreal, that would be like me playing for the Canucks. It's like, he's diehard Habs fan. It was like greatest thing ever. And then I know he mentioned to me, he's like, when he went to Chicago, it was just like kind of tough, because like he was having a career year. And like you said, that big payday's coming, and then he was like an insurance guy. Like, they just had him, they weren't really getting him in the lineup, and then they didn't really pan out there in the playoffs. So then he was kind of like, where's this gonna leave me? And then Philly liked him, and they got him a good, nice 3-year deal. So I mean, it worked out pretty well for him. And but I'm proud of those guys. So it's I mean, at first I was a little upset, but I mean, I'm just a big hockey fan. I still love watching hockey. I play fantasy every day. So it's I mean, it's great that those guys are doing it.
I always wanted the flip side of that too, because we've all played with a guy maybe when we were younger, and I can think of some guys that I played with even, at my level, and I think these guys are unreal, but they never played in the AIHL, and it's almost like, man, if I was coaching him now, I'd bring him up. And I wonder if, I'm sure they do, like some of your buddies are like, I don't know why Woody isn't here. Like he I know he can win that draw. I know I can do this, and it's kind of crazy to think that there's some great hockey players out there that.
No, definitely, and I'm pretty fortunate with when I'm back in Kelowna. I haven't been back there now since I've been coming to Australia the last couple of years. But some of those summer skates, like you guys would just your jaw would be down on the floor if you saw who's out there. Half the Canadian Olympic team, we got Price, Shea Weber, Reimer, Dubnyk, Getzlaff, Heatley, Hartnell, the Shens. These are guys that I get to skate with. And when you go around the dressing room and look, and guys will always laugh. They go, do you know who has one of the most, or out of all this group, who had the most goals in one single season at WHL? And it's Woody. Yeah. And so they're we know you can score. Price loves it when I score on him. He's it's the only guy that's not playing in the NHL here is scoring on me. Yeah. So he's they know, and Dale always jokes. He's man, you could. He's I want you on my line. I want you out there. He's if I could, I would.
And I wonder who
so much respect
in the NHL is going to the GM, you know what I mean? And then saying, hey, I know a guy. Do you know what I mean? That happens here.
Give him a try.
That happens here. Gary or whoever's running your team, I know a guy. Yeah. Right? That's actually how Bales came to play in Australia. Brian Bales, who won the cup for us last year. Yeah. Was a guy dropped out, and Pete Cartwright was I know a guy. He wasn't playing anywhere. Yeah. So Pete had to make up this fabricated story of how he was playing in this really good summer league. And got him into the league, and now he broke a record that year, and obviously he won us a cup.
He's a natural goal scorer.
Legendary.
He's just we talk about him all the time, and it's just he was putting up insane points per game last year, and he's only playing half the games and not practicing.
Wasn't practicing.
He's one of those guys. He has it. It's I bet you could take 5 years off, and he'd come back, and he'd still have the silkiest hands ever, and just be able to do it. But that's almost kind of Jan was in full retirement this year, and had zero. He got a great coaching job with the Okanagan hockey academy over there in Austria, and he was that's it, I'm coaching now. And then it was Bidlevsky went down with career-ending injury with his throat, and we were we need a guy, and I'm I'll try. I got my guy, he's one of my best friends. I was if we can convince this guy to do it, then we'll do it. And then next thing you know, he comes to Canberra, and then I convinced my coach in Paris to bring him there, and I think it's gonna work out pretty well. And he's that same guy. He just wasn't quite ready to retire. He just loves it too much, and he's just a gamer. We like playing games. We love playing hockey. So it's cool if you can help out a buddy like that. It's great. It might be a stretch for me to get in the NHL, but if anyone's listening, I'll put the hours in the gym again. I'll do it. I'll do it if you want me.
You were talking about being in the locker room, the respect these guys had for you. I'm just thinking about a couple examples I know of players who I feel should have went to the league. Is there anyone that you saw as you were going through your hockey career and towards the latter days that you're man, you have so much talent. Why aren't you in the league? Why aren't if I had that opportunity, I would be seizing it. So I guess to be more specific, someone that you saw who had it but just didn't appreciate it as much as you did.
Yeah, you see different guys around. It's hard to always know exactly what's going on, whether or not they're having personal struggles or certain things. You can kind of tell. But I think we talked about a guy like Ryan House. He was a Calgary Flames pick, and he's a 50-goal scorer in the dub. And just I was watching his career, and he was a year younger than me in BC, and man, this guy could skate like the wind and shoot nobody's business. And you're man, he's for sure NHLer. And it just, for whatever reason, just didn't work out. And then next thing you know, he's just not playing hockey anymore.
Yeah.
And it's almost more devastating to go from NHL contract, signing bonus in your bank, all this, and then it's when you're at that level, even when I was in junior, you frown upon the ECHL. That's not where you're wanting, because that's not your goal. It's I don't really want that, but right now I would give up anything to get back there or to the ECHL. And maybe for him, it was just that's not what I want. And it's just I don't want it anymore, or I don't know, it's I don't want to name names of a bunch of guys, but for that guy, I honestly thought that this guy will be in the NHL and he will score goals in the NHL, and just for whatever reason it didn't work out. And he's coaching now. He's coaching junior A and coaching minor hockey and stuff. But
there's such a bigger picture, I think, with all hockey. If you're looking at it as a fan, obviously, I follow the Flames, and why this guy should be put here, or they're not calling this guy up. Why? And then, once you've coached a team or you've played on a team and you're in the room, there's so many layers that the fans and even people on other teams will just never understand. And a lot of it you can't describe, but it's like, oh, that guy, he's really good, but he's an asshole, you know what I mean? Or it's this and that, or he might have a certain type of contract where he can't get called up, but no one sees that, on the surface. I think
there's especially at the NHL level with the salary cap and that, like, so many things come into play now. Like, you can't just buy a team anymore and just put all the best players or whoever you can get for as much money, and you can start overpaying and overvaluing guys. But like we were talking off camera about the PK Subban Shea Weber deal. And it's like, people are like, what? Like, what's going on? Like, that was like craziness in my head. Like, knowing Shea and getting to skate with him and, like, having a beer with the guy, it's like, I know how amazing that guy is, and he would be like, he's a Rockets alumni too. And if I still saw him, like, we're not best buddies, but he'd be like, hey Woody, how's it going? Like, he would know and remember that. And I mean, maybe PK is just like that too, but I mean, Shea's put a good impression on me, and like, so when I see that, and I know that him and Price are like best friends, like they're best men at each other's weddings, like that kind of stuff is like, that can boost that locker room up that much. Like, maybe he's just got that lumberjack captain attitude to him that is just like, maybe that's what's going to put the Canadians just a little bit over the edge and help them win this year. But like, you never know, right? But
the other thing is the GMs of the team, they're getting paid a lot of money, and they're in charge of a lot of money to do a good job. It's in their best interest for the guys that they pick high to do well. So they're going to get a look. For a guy to kind of come out of nowhere and walk on and make the team, even though it might help the team, it kind of makes them look stupid. Because it's like, well, why didn't we draft this guy? Because the guy we did draft is not doing anything. So guys get longer looks and things like that because the GM, he wants a good team, but he's got to justify why he's doing what he's doing.
But they get longer looks. But I think nowadays, because you're seeing so many guys that just, for whatever reason, they sprout late in their career and they come out of nowhere. Like, I know players, I want to say, is it Justin Johnson for Tampa Bay?
Oh,
Tyler Johnson. He's a player that I know he played in the A. Cooper brought him up, but like, he was all right in the AHL. He was crushing the A, and then those are players like they came out of nowhere. Or a Darren Helm that came out of nowhere. Like these players, like, it happens so much, and like undrafted, because even though like you say you have the draft picks and everything like that, you have the college system that also competes with the Canadian or the OHL, CHL, and the Q. So you're in the system, you're going, and then out of nowhere, some kid that you've never even played with, like it could be from Europe, could be from Russia, it doesn't matter, and then like this kid slides in, and before you know it, it's just like bam. So even though like you've gone through the filter, think about all your Canadian buddies that you've gone through the filter with, and you're actually drafted. So like, that is like majestic in itself. But then on top of that, you're just scratching the surface, because there's still so much more competition. It's absolutely ridiculous. So like,
and it comes from everywhere. Because I'm thinking like, what you were mentioning, like, you just have people that come out of nowhere, and that's like the story for so many players in the NFL, like Peyton Manning and Kurt Warner. Like, they just come out of nowhere. They were like second or third string. They get the opportunity. But for gridiron or football, it's so filtered, and it starts early. Like, you get high school, then if you make it to college, it's like, whoa. If you make like D1, you're playing the SEC or whatever, and then to even get like past college and then into the NFL. The hockey, you have so many different leagues going on, so many different opportunities. Even when you were playing, I remember like, you were debating on going like either whether you play high school hockey or you play like in the O, right? Or the OHL?
Well, it was like triple A. It's either major junior or regular junior. And like, we had a new OHL team that came in town, the Saginaw Spirit. So that was a big hype and everything like that. I was playing Detroit Little Caesars, so it was a well-known triple A squad. So
so it's either juniors, high school, or OHL.
So you, to be honest, at that age, because of the level of hockey, you wouldn't even think high school. For me, it was either triple A, or it was either junior A in the States or junior A paid in Canada. So
and then you go through college or what?
And then you go through college, and then after college you have to be going pro.
Right. Okay.
So, like, I have a good example of that. Like, I mean, one of my line mates growing up, Derek Grant, that we talked about before, he was like, I was the big guy, he was the little guy. Now he's bigger than me. So like, growing up, like, our paths went like this a few times, and now he's like on the fringe of making it, like up and down all year. Like, we took completely different paths. I mean, for growing up, and he's one of my best buddies. We're playing street hockey together. And then I get drafted second overall in dub, and he gets undrafted, and it's like, man, like he is so good, like he is so skilled, and I'm just like, I felt bad for the guy, but that just wasn't even in his mindset. Like the dub wasn't a thing, because he was like, 5'8", I'm like, bordering on 6 foot at like 14 years old, right? And then so he was just patient enough and like confident in himself that it would make it. Like he went through the whole midget, junior B, junior A again, and like put back his scholarship with Michigan State for another year. And then he goes to Michigan State, when he's like, what is it, like 19 at this point, because he got drafted at a junior A, like, a round later than me, or a few rounds later. So it was like, that was great too, that it was like, wow, okay, he's finally getting recognized. Now he's like 6'3" at like 18. So it, like, you can see it starting to work. Mine was like fast tracked. Mine was bantam, midget, boom, WHL.
Yep.
I'm right there, draft, doing all this, combine, yada yada. But he was like slowly making his way. He was getting bigger, filling into his body, and it just like, it's great. It gives faith to those guys who don't get drafted early. Like, you can still make it, right?
Yeah.
It's harder, definitely, but then he goes through that whole process of college, and then, he puts 2 years in NCAA, and then now he's got a contract because he was always successful at whatever level he was. Like, meanwhile, like, I'm grinding in the dub, like, you're getting hit, you're doing all this crazy stuff, and he's like lighting it up at junior B, lighting it up at midget, lighting it up at junior A, this and that, and then does well. Boom, his first 2 years NCAA, because you see some guys go NCAA like too young, and you just get passed by that next recruiting class.
Yep.
And he's just like, you know what? I've always done it a bit slower, so he's like, why don't I just wait 1 more year, and then I'll come in with recruiting class that's guys are younger than me now, and I'm going to be ahead of them.
And see, I think there's something in that, because in a lot of sports, if you're good at what you do, usually you get pushed up to the next level.
Yeah.
If you're dominating at a certain age, then you kind of go up in age to, I guess, be more competitive within your game. But just like you said, he was a slow grower.
Yeah.
He kind of developed slower, but he was still doing well within that.
Yeah.
And that worked well with him. While you said you went in early, and because the dub is serious. Because like you said, once you step in as a 16-year-old, well, you said 15. Yeah. You have guys in the league that are 21. Yeah. That's a massive age gap. Yeah, wow. You know what I mean? Compared to if you're a college player, he goes in at 19. Yeah, you're going to get some guys at like the age of 23, 24. But you can compete very well from a 19 to 24, 25-year-old compared to a 15, 16-year-old compared to 20 years old. Yeah, absolutely. And I wonder, how does that play even with recruiting? I know when I was a kid, I went from AAA, and I did the junior B thing. I was only able to do it for so long because I was too young to stay there. Yeah. But I was trying to fast track to juniors to get out of the midget minor, midget major system, which nowadays, when I'm recommending to hockey players at the moment, is stay within that system and develop in it. Because if you're ripping it up at U18s, even as an 18-year-old, well, that's going to give you more looks for a good junior team. Yeah. And then, okay, you go into junior, you're well developed because you're getting those touches. Yeah. Because you're a big fish in a small pond, you're getting the touches, you're able to play on the power play, you're able to do different things, and that kind of helps grow and develop you that way. Because I've known of majorly skilled players that I was playing with at my age level that just went up a year, and now they're gone type of deal. And then I know some guys that have taken the slow process, have just dominated this age, dominated that age, but they've always stayed within their group and stayed longer. And it kind of works out with them.
And then I think you keep that. Well, first of all, parents, and maybe not in your case, John, but when I've been dealing with it, parents are usually the one that want their kid playing at the higher level. Yeah. Because they think to get noticed, you have to be. Yeah. But I totally agree with what you're saying. I think for kids in hockey, just dominate your age group. Dominate your age group, because then there's unknown. There's well, is he junior to college, for example? Yeah. It's this guy's 19, or he's dominating, but he's 19 or he's 20. How's he going to do? In the NCAA. Well, if you go at 18 and maybe only play 10 games, and then you go back, but the 10 games weren't good, well, now it's like, well, he tried and he wasn't good. Yeah. stay, dominate, and then it's like, what's he going to be like? We don't know. All we can judge him off is him killing it. We can't judge him off the 10 games where it didn't work because it was too early. And that's what you're going to risk when you go too early. So, I'm a big believer in that. But like Geordie said, everyone's different, right? Like his buddy Derek Grant, like it's whatever's right for you. But I just find, parents tend to push.
Parents tend to push
on their kids a little bit.
But that Canadian system, though, it is the fast track to the show. And like you've seen it, there's been guys that go bam, bam, bam. And like if you're in that fast lane, you can get there right away and you're going. And like, why not? If you have the skills and you can play in the NHL at 19, why not? And so I mean,
it's so tough, and like when you're in it too. I remember the day I got drafted to the WHL, May 5th, 2005, and you're like, oh my God, here it is. Like you got it, boom, give me another year, we'll be making it. 2 years, you're in the NHL. And it's like how are you supposed to make that decision when it's like someone's put that idea in your head that you got it? And I mean, I was so close, and other guys can, like Jonathan Taves went first overall 2 years before me and said, no, I'm not doing it. And then goes to prep school, dominates like you say, and then does like 1 year at North Dakota maybe, and he was like graduated a year early and was doing that crazy stuff too. So it's like that was what worked for him. Look, he's possibly one of the best players in the NHL. So it's like, to say yes or no, I mean, he was first, I'm going second. It's like, completely different paths that they chose. But you see, but then you see so many guys, they go first overall, top 10 in their junior, boom, 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 19, you're a millionaire. And you're playing, you're making your dream come true, right? So it's such a tough decision, but I think I agree with you guys. Like, if you can dominate where you're at, and if you can put yourself in the right position, the draft with junior is tough because you don't really get to pick where you're gonna go. Because there were certain teams that I thought would help me more, but because it's tough because the higher you go, the weaker the team you're gonna be on, right? So some guys go later in the draft. Like Evander Kane went like the next year after me, later in the draft to Vancouver. He's still gonna get that same opportunity if they put him on the line, and then they do, and then he's got the good players to play with, right? So meanwhile, you could get a guy that goes first overall, and then you're like why wasn't he making it in junior, or why did it take him till 18, 19 to be that guy and then make it? It's because they needed the rest of the guys to catch up and build that team around him too. So it is tough when there's so many intangibles that you got to think of. But like you said, if you can be successful and stay in that comfort zone and keep going up, and then it could be the right way to go.
I want to fast forward a little bit to further on in your career a bit, because obviously you go to Europe for a bit in Germany, professional year, then you go to school, New Brunswick and then UBC. But I guess fast forward even more, the one I'm interested about is playing for the Bentley Generals. Because I lived in Calgary in Canada, near that area, and I've heard a lot about that team, and it's kind of, to me, I think it's a really cool story, and it's kind of one of the unknown leagues for one, but teams. If you look at that team, they're building their roster now, and it was the same when you played there. That's a pro team, and that could play in the coast or higher.
That's probably one of the best teams I've ever played on, which is crazy because you get this mix of guys who are ex-NHLers. We had ex-NHLers. We had a guy that was a two-time World Junior champion. We had Trent Hunter, who was NHL Rookie of the Year. And you got these guys who were playing during the lockout and stuff. And how I got there was bizarre because it was I was transferring schools, which is a tough thing. So you got a red shirt for 12 months, and I chose to do it from December to December, so that I could still get back in for the next playoff run, because I just wasn't seeing myself playing a lot at UNB, and I went to UBC, it's close to home, and I was doing well in school, and I still need to finish it, but I still want to end off with that good degree, from back home. That'll be hopefully help me out in the business world, or down the road with that. But I'm literally driving across the entire country. I'm living in Kelowna on the West Coast, and I'm out in New Brunswick, and I'm making my way through the States because it's a little bit faster.
Making my way down.
Exactly. That's what it's like, because I'm like, wow, this is gonna be 12 months without hockey. I'm like, this is crazy. I haven't got a week without hockey, right? And then I get a call from a buddy who's playing with Bentley Generals. He's like, hey, Woody, what's going on? I heard you're redshirting. I'm like, do you need a place to play? I'm like, yeah. Like, let's get this going. I'm like, what, where, and like, what's going on here? And they're like, well, we play for the Bentley Generals. It's like senior hockey in Canada, and we play like in the Alberta League. But we're hosting the Allen Cup this year, so we're going to be in that final tournament, and we have a chance to win national championship.
Right.
And I was like, wow, that sounds great. So detour off to Red Deer. I'm living in Red Deer, and Bentley's just a tiny little town. I think they've moved to like Lacombe now or something like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, just this tiny little town, like I don't know, like maybe 1,000 people, and they have this tiny little rink. But I mean, you have owners that like used to be in like the oil industry and stuff. Like these guys are like multi-millionaires. One guy is the mascot, like that's your owner. This guy's worth millions of dollars, and he's wearing a horse suit. And like we're talking about loving hockey. These guys love hockey.
Yeah.
I mean, you got guys like it's hilarious. Like their slogan, and I love it. I'll always keep this. It's blood, sweat, and beers.
Yeah.
Like that's literally what it is. Like these guys are like, you get this weird mix of guys that are just gone through college, guys have just gone through junior, guys are on the tail end. Like they love to facilitate that transition to like the real world after hockey, because it is tough.
Yeah.
Like, you don't want to have to just abruptly stop your sport because it's tough. So like we got that mix of NHLers who are just starting to get into the sales world and do all this, and you know, you get that mix of guys that had a bunch of money, guys who have no money. The guy was coming there like in the middle of my college. So you go there, and then you got these owners who just love hockey, and our manager there, Jeff McGinnis, he's just like the best guy ever, and he runs such a great program, and like it's such a family like orientated feel. Like that's how you feel. Like, you know, you got your guys, your trainers there, he's having a Bailey's and coffee there in like the dressing room, and like, you know, it's just like it was so fun. But it's like then you go in there and like they have this dressing room, and I'm like, what? Like you have this like the oldest rink you can possibly imagine. Like you flick the puck up and it's like lower than Canberra's. Like, you know, stuff's falling off the ceiling, and you got like guys who were just playing in the NHL last year are playing in this rink. And it's freezing cold. Like I had to get a turtleneck. It's like up to there, and it's like just stay warm in there.
Sutter coaching?
No, I just missed him by a year.
Yeah.
He was coaching in Innsfail, so against us. So like
this is coach of the year in the NHL years back.
Yeah, it's
coaching in this.
coaching
league.
it.
Yeah.
So I guess Phil, like, because I'm just now hearing about it.
Yeah.
Fill our listeners in on. Okay, so you said it's out of Alberta.
Yeah.
Fill us more in on the league itself. How many teams are there? How often do you guys travel?
So like, I wouldn't even know off the top of my head how many teams. I'd be lying if I said it, but they're
There's
kind
there's only about 5 or 6.
5 or 6.
Yeah.
And are they all in Alberta?
Yeah, so like
Okay.
in our league is all in Alberta, and they're mostly around the Calgary, Edmonton area.
Okay.
Like you got like Sylvan Lake, Innisfail,
Stony Plain.
Stony Plain.
Okay.
These so I mean the travel's nice. Like you're not going too far. Like I would say pretty much everyone had a full-time job. You're working Monday to Friday. Like I was working, like I was a sheet metal mechanic. This is what I was doing in my time. I was working for like Jeff's company, our GM. So I'm literally there making like heating ducts. Like if I look around here, like I'm making heating ducts and doing all this like during the day, and you're practicing similar like the AIHL. It's pretty comparable, where you know you practice twice a week. Like their rules are like if you can make it to Thursday, you can play on the weekend. But you know, try to be there on Tuesday as well. But guys are getting paid.
AIHL.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah.
Yeah, like but they're like guys were openly getting paid and stuff, and it was like, you know, like there was no rules on what was going on.
Okay.
So like you'd have some guys getting paid money and guys getting free beers. Like that was literally hilarious. Like that's like
that's
you
your
guys do
contract?
like like I think we were sponsored by like I want to say Coors, but it might have been Labatt. So it's like, yeah, here's your 12-pack. And like here's your cash, and like you got your sticks. Like we were like had a Reebok deal. This is like senior. This
Senior
is like
league.
senior.
It's
right?
crazy.
So-
I was living in Calgary and playing on a team in Drayton Valley, and I would drive. I'd heard so much about the Bentley Generals, and then when I kind of looked it up online, I'm like, this is
Like how bad was the website? Like
back then it was bad. Back then it was photos, overlapping words, and because a buddy of mine who was living in Calgary from Ontario was like, we got to go watch. I really want to go watch a Bentley Generals game, and I'm like, okay, so I kind of seen where it was, and I was driving to Drayton, and you kind of go through Sylvan Lake.
Yeah.
And I seen a road sign, Bentley, like 2K in that way, and it's just pitch black. And I'm like, I'm like, sure.
There's no way.
And it's a tiny little town. But then we finally got to a game, and it was provincials. They're playing a team from BC. And the rink, they're playing in Red Deer for the provincial game. The rink was packed, and it's one of the best games I've seen.
Yeah.
And now I'm like interested, so I'm getting the program, and I'm on my phone. And that's when I realized it's a pro roster. Guys that are, well, for example, last year for Stony Plain, I think Ryan Smith was playing. He's a year out of the NHL. Yeah. And they didn't win it. He's grinding away and they lost. Yeah, and
Theo Fleury's played in this league. In similar leagues Thomas Heemskirk, Perth goalie this year, he was on an NHL deal. He's playing an AHL game. He won it Allen Cup like I did with Bentley. Yeah. And he's loving. He was doing the same job as I did, but it's like you said, it's bizarre how you have these guys that are legends, and it just they don't want to stop playing. Yeah. They just love it, and it's makes such a unique league. I mean, if they ever expanded across the whole country and you were flying around like we do here, I mean, that would be the only thing that would hold them back. But
do you think the similarities? Is there similarities with AIHL? Because, like you said, it's. Some teams are loosey-goosey a little bit, the trainers having the Baileys, and not that that's happening on teams here, but the Tuesday, Thursday practice is what we have here in Newcastle, and it's I got a friend right now from another country, and I know for a fact he was Australia, hockey, and then everyone comes again, it's kind of like that feeling I had in Bentley. It's wow, this is actually really good, and your imports are pro.
Yeah.
Compare the two.
I completely agree. We've talked before, I think it is somewhat comparable, because you have those top level guys, they're getting guys back when there was the Central League, but now it's ECHL. You're getting guys that are fresh out of playing legitimate pro hockey. Yeah. And then you get guys who are kind of older. You could have guys in your late 30s, 40s playing on. The only thing that's different is obviously just the fact that we're in Australia and the locals haven't got that same experience that every single guy on that did. But I think we take it more seriously here in Australia. Like you said, we're not having the coach and the guys having the Baileys at practice or whatever. It's not quite that loose. Oh, maybe there is. but it is really similar, and I think. Like you said, it's that wow factor. The amount of guys who have messaged me after we won last year, they were I want to play in Australia. How do I do it? It's
it's not that easy.
I'm it's just not that easy. I would like to say and here's a bunch of emails that you can do. Yeah. But I was really only given a good recommendation for a few guys like Heemskirk. I was Perth would be a great spot for you. I think you'll fit. I mean, a few guys Prokop on my team messaged me, and Tillman is an ex-teammate that's playing on the Dogs.
I get the same thing. It's could I play in Australia? It's yes, but as an import, no.
Yeah, exactly. That's the big thing.
That's the answer. Yeah, it's could you be better than some of the lower true Aussie guys that were born and raised here? Maybe, but it's just there's not a spot for you because as an import it's just not gonna work. Right, to be an import you have to be good. When we're matching against import lines almost all the time. Yeah, and it's I'm going head to head with you, and it's just this is a legitimately good matchup. When people come and watch that, they're this is good hockey. If I can break you for a goal, it's wow, I got it done tonight. Yeah, it's not a cakewalk all the time. If you get that mismatch, but I mean, most of the teams are usually playing that chess game where you're keeping those matchups, and I mean, but it's great matchup too, because the third line versus third line, great matchup. Second line versus second line, great matchup. Top line versus top line, great matchup. Yeah, and so it's pretty much how you want to pick and choose your imports and what positions you want to play. Like picking if you want a goalie or a D-man or forwards. That's kind of where the decisions come in. But I think the two leagues do compare, definitely in a sense of that wow factor that it's a lot better than what you would go in thinking.
That says a lot about the AIHL. But phenomenal conversation. I know all you guys listening and watching are loving it. So guess what? There's more. If you guys want to hear the rest of this conversation, part 2 of this awesome roundtable conversation, make sure you guys subscribe to the Grassroots newsletter and check out the show notes. The link will be in the middle, and see you there. Enjoy.